In the summer of 2013, the world as we knew it was fundamentally and irrevocably altered. A young, unassuming, and bespectacled intelligence contractor named Edward Snowden walked out of the shadows of the American intelligence community and into the blinding glare of global history. From a hotel room in Hong Kong, clutching a Rubik's Cube that served as a recognition signal, he revealed to the world the breathtaking, almost unimaginable scope of modern government surveillance. Through a series of explosive, highly classified documents leaked to journalists Glenn Greenwald and Laura Poitras, he showed us that the United States National Security Agency, the NSA, the most powerful and secretive intelligence organization on the planet, was secretly collecting the telephone metadata records of who called whom, when, and for how long off virtually every American citizen. He showed us that the NSA and its allies were tapping directly into the central servers of the world's largest and most trusted technology companies: Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Yahoo, hoovering up our emails, our search histories, our private photos, our video chats, and our personal data through a clandestine program codenamed Prism. He revealed that our digital lives, the very fabric of our modern existence, were being systematically monitored on a scale that dwarfed the most paranoid visions of dystopian fiction, a scale that would have made the Stasi of East Germany blush with envy. Edward Snowden became an instant household name, a figure of intense global debate and polarization. He was a hero to some, a courageous whistleblower who had sacrificed his career, his freedom, and his future to inform the public about the secret and unconstitutional overreach of the state. He was a traitor to others, a criminal who had endangered national security, betrayed his oath, and delivered a treasure trove of secrets into the hands of America's adversaries. His disclosures sparked a worldwide conversation, a conversation that continues to this day, about privacy, security, and the secret, unaccountable power of the state in the digital age. The year 2013 felt like a watershed moment, the year the curtain was finally and violently pulled back, revealing the terrifying, whirring machinery of surveillance that had been built in the shadows. But what if I told you that the world Snowden revealed was not new? What if I told you that the collect-it-all philosophy, the technological architecture of mass surveillance, and the secret international alliances that made it all possible were not recent developments, not a panicked reaction to the post-9/11 world? What if I told you that long before the internet as we know it, long before smartphones and social media, a system of global surveillance already existed that was, in its own way, just as powerful, just as ambitious, and just as intrusive? A system that was born in the ashes of the Second World War, that grew to monstrous proportions in the shadows of the Cold War, and that by the end of the 20th century, had the proven ability to listen to almost everything we said and everything we wrote. This is the story of a secret that was hiding in plain sight for decades. A story of giant, mysterious, golf ball-like listening posts silently dotting the globe, from the windswept moorlands of England to the desolate outback of Australia. A story of secret agreements between nations, binding them together in an intelligence pact more intimate and more enduring than any public treaty. And a story of a powerful, automated, global electronic brain, designed to sift through the world's communications in search of secrets. A system with a code name that sounds like something from a science fiction novel. This is the story of the pre-Snowden era of mass surveillance. This is the story of the ECHELON network. For many years, the name ECHELON was whispered only in the circles of investigative journalists, intelligence whistleblowers, and so-called conspiracy theorists. It was a phantom, a ghost in the machine. It was consistently and vehemently denied by governments, dismissed as a paranoid fantasy, a wild exaggeration, a myth. But as we will see tonight, through declassified documents, whistleblower testimony, and official parliamentary inquiries, it was very, very real. Tonight, we will embark on a deep investigation into this hidden history. We will uncover the origins of the powerful and intensely secretive Five Eyes Alliance, the secret pact that forms the very backbone of Western intelligence to this day. We will journey to the remote corners of the globe, to the windswept moorlands of Yorkshire, the desolate outback of Australia, and the snowy plains of Canada, to visit the massive spy stations that act as the network's all-hearing ears. And we will explore the shocking and deeply disturbing allegations of how this system was used not just to spy on our enemies, but on our closest allies, on multinational corporations, and on ordinary, unsuspecting citizens. This is a story of NSA secrets, of immense technological power, and of the long, slow, and almost imperceptible erosion of privacy that began long before any of us had ever heard the name Edward Snowden. Part 1. The Forging of an Alliance: The Secret Birth of the Five Eyes. To understand the origins of the ECHELON network, we must first travel back in time, to the darkest days of the Second World War. The war was not just being fought on the battlefields of Europe, in the skies over Britain, and on the seas of the Pacific. It was also being fought in a silent, invisible, and critically important realm, the realm of signals intelligence, or SIGINT. Allied codebreakers, mathematicians, and engineers were engaged in a desperate, high-stakes intellectual battle to decipher the secret communications of the Axis powers. The most famous of these efforts took place at a secret facility in the English countryside, a Victorian manor house known as Bletchley Park, or Station X. There, a team of brilliant and eccentric minds, including the legendary Alan Turing, worked tirelessly around the clock to crack Germany's supposedly unbreakable Enigma code, which was used by the German military, and the even more complex Lorenz cipher, used by the German High Command. Their success was a war-winning achievement, giving the Allies unprecedented insight into German U-boat movements, military plans, and command structures, saving countless lives and shortening the war by an estimated 2 years. At the same time, thousands of miles away, across the Atlantic, American codebreakers were having similar spectacular success against the Japanese. The U.S. Navy's MAGIC program successfully broke Japan's highest-level diplomatic cipher, codenamed Purple. This breakthrough gave President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his top advisors almost real-time access to the secret diplomatic cables being sent between Tokyo and its embassies around the world, including the embassy in Berlin. This provided invaluable insight into Japanese intentions and their alliance with Nazi Germany. The U.S. Army's Signal Intelligence Service also made huge strides in breaking Japanese military codes. This secret war of the airwaves was incredibly effective, but in the early years of the war, it was also highly compartmentalized. The British and the Americans were often working on the same problems, duplicating each other's efforts, and jealously guarding their own secrets and breakthroughs. As the war progressed, however, it became clear that a much deeper level of cooperation was needed to defeat the common enemy. In 1943, after months of secret negotiations, a landmark agreement was signed between Britain and the United States. It was known as the BRUSA Agreement, for Britain-United States of America. This agreement formalized the intelligence-sharing relationship between the two nations. They agreed to share personnel, techniques, and, most importantly, the raw intelligence they were collecting. This new level of cooperation was incredibly successful and proved to be a powerful force multiplier. When the war finally ended in 1945, the world was faced with a new and immediate threat: the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. The hot war against fascism was immediately replaced by the Cold War against communism. The Western powers, particularly Britain and America, realized that the intelligence cooperation that had helped them win the war would be just as crucial, if not more so, in this new, shadowy, global conflict. And so, on March 5, 1946, the wartime BRUSA Agreement was updated and formalized into a new, even more comprehensive and highly secret treaty. This was the ECHELON Agreement, United Kingdom United States of America Agreement. This document is the founding charter, the secret constitution, of what would come to be known as the Five Eyes Alliance. The ECHELON Agreement was initially a bilateral pact between the United Kingdom's Signals Intelligence Agency, the Government Communications Headquarters or GCHQ, and the United States agencies, the precursors to the National Security Agency, NSA. They agreed to a full and seamless partnership to effectively merge their global SIGINT operations. They agreed to divide the world up into spheres of influence for the purpose of signals intelligence collection. The UK, with its global network of listening posts and cable tapping stations left over from the days of the British Empire, would be primarily responsible for monitoring Africa and Europe, including a large and vital portion of the Western Soviet Union. The United States, with its growing technological prowess, would focus on Latin America, China, and the vast eastern territories of the Soviet Union. Soon after the initial agreement was signed, the alliance was expanded to include 3 other key Commonwealth nations who had been valuable intelligence partners during the war, and who were seen as culturally and politically reliable: Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Each of these second-party nations, as they were known, was given a specific geographic area of responsibility. Canada's Signals Intelligence Agency, the Communications Security Establishment (CSE), was tasked with monitoring the northern part of the Soviet Union and the polar regions. Australia's Defence Signals Directorate (DSD) and New Zealand's Government Communications Security Bureau (GCSB) were assigned to cover Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific. This was a pact of unprecedented scope and intimacy. The 5 nations agreed to a policy of no spying on each other, though as we would later learn from declassified documents and whistleblower testimony, this was a promise that was often bent, broken, and creatively reinterpreted. More importantly, they agreed to share almost everything they collected. The raw data intercepted by a listening post in the desolate Australian outback would be instantly available to analysts in a London suburb, or at the NSA's massive headquarters at Fort Meade, Maryland. It created a seamless, integrated global intelligence network, an electronic empire on which the sun never set. The 5 nations, bound by a common language, a shared history, and a deep-seated fear of communism, became, in the world of signals intelligence, a single unified supranational entity. This powerful and intensely secretive alliance, the Five Eyes Alliance, would form the foundation and the backbone for everything that was to come, including the creation and operation of the ECHELON network. Part 2. The Giant Ears and the Dictionary in the Sky. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the Five Eyes Alliance built a massive, globe-spanning infrastructure for signals intelligence. They constructed huge, sprawling listening posts in remote and strategic locations all around the world. These facilities, with their forests of antennas and their giant, iconic satellite dishes often protected by massive white domes called radomes, became the all-hearing ears of the Alliance. Famous examples include the Royal Air Force Base at Menwith Hill in the windswept Yorkshire countryside of England, the joint US-Australian facility at Pine Gap in the desolate Australian outback, the Sugar Grove Station in the mountains of West Virginia, and the Waihopai Station on the South Island of New Zealand. Initially, the primary targets of this vast network were the military and diplomatic communications of the Soviet Union and its Eastern Bloc allies. The Five Eyes listened in on Soviet bomber patrols, tracked the movements of their nuclear submarines, and intercepted the coded messages passing between Moscow and its embassies and KGB residencies around the world. The primary method of interception during this early period was high-frequency radio monitoring and, in a series of incredibly audacious covert operations, the physical tapping of undersea communication cables. But in the 1960s, a technological revolution occurred that would dramatically and exponentially expand the reach of the Five Eyes. This was the dawn of the age of satellite communications. In 1965, the first commercial communications satellite, Intelsat-I, also known as Early Bird, was launched into geosynchronous orbit. For the first time, telephone calls, telex messages, and faxes could be beamed from one continent to another in an instant. This created a massive new river of information flowing through the sky, a torrent of data that carried not just diplomatic cables, but the private conversations and business dealings of millions of people around the world. And for the spies of the Five Eyes Alliance, it presented both a formidable challenge and an incredible, almost irresistible opportunity. The challenge was how to intercept these powerful, focused microwave signals being beamed between the satellites and the ground stations. The opportunity was that if they could master this, they would have access to a huge volume of the world's civilian communications, a treasure trove of potential intelligence. This is where the ECHELON network comes in. While the exact origins of the program are still shrouded in secrecy, researchers and whistleblowers have pieced together its history. The ECHELON program is believed to have been established by the NSA in the late 1960s or early 1970s. Its primary purpose was to develop a comprehensive system capable of intercepting and processing the vast new flow of international satellite communications. The name ECHELON itself was originally a code name, not for the entire network, but for the sophisticated computer software that made the system possible. The basic concept was simple in its logic, yet incredibly powerful in its execution. The massive satellite dishes at the Five Eyes listening posts, like Menwith Hill in the UK and Pine Gap in Australia, would act as giant vacuum cleaners. Their dishes would be aimed at the commercial Intelsat and other communications satellites orbiting the Earth. They would then, according to the allegations, suck up the vast majority of communications passing through those satellites. This would include everything: private phone calls, faxes between businesses, diplomatic cables between embassies, telex messages, and later, as the technology evolved, emails and internet traffic. Of course, intercepting this much information, literally millions of messages every hour, created a new and immense problem: how to find the single needle of valuable intelligence in the massive, ever-growing haystack of mundane, everyday communications. It would be physically impossible for human analysts to listen to every phone call or read every fax. The solution to this problem was the technological heart of the ECHELON system: a global network of powerful supercomputers that would act as a massive, automated filter. This system worked through the use of a concept known as the dictionary. Each of the major collection stations in the ECHELON network would be programmed with a vast, constantly updated list of keywords, phrases, names, telephone numbers, and email addresses. This dictionary was a collaborative effort, with each of the 5 intelligence agencies contributing their own targets and keywords of interest. The powerful computers at each station would then automatically scan the millions of intercepted communications in near real time, searching for any hits on the dictionary list. The system was incredibly sophisticated for its time. It used advanced voice recognition to scan phone calls and optical character recognition, OCR, to scan faxes. For example, the dictionary might include the names of suspected terrorists, the known phone numbers of foreign diplomats, technical terms related to nuclear weapon design, or the names of companies suspected of violating trade sanctions. When the ECHELON computer found a hit, a communication containing one of the keywords, that communication would be automatically flagged and forwarded, via a secure network, to the relevant intelligence agency for analysis by a human operator. So, if a businessman in Germany made a phone call to a company in Japan and happened to mention the name of a Syrian arms dealer, or a specific type of centrifuge technology, that call would be automatically intercepted by the ECHELON station at Menwith Hill, its content transcribed and recognized by the computer, and the transcript sent to the NSA or MI6 for further review. This was a revolutionary quantum leap in the technology of global surveillance. It represented a fundamental shift in the paradigm of intelligence gathering. It moved beyond the traditional, targeted surveillance of specific individuals or groups, and into the realm of mass, indiscriminate, vacuum cleaner-style interception. The system was, by its very design, sweeping up the private communications of millions of ordinary people around the world who were not suspected of any wrongdoing, all on the off chance that their conversations might contain a keyword of interest. This was the birth of the collect-it-all mentality that would come to define the NSA secrets revealed by Edward Snowden decades later. The technology was different satellite dishes instead of fiber optic taps, but the underlying principle was exactly the same. For decades, The existence of ECHELON was one of the most closely guarded Cold War secrets. The governments of the Five Eyes nations consistently and flatly denied that any such system existed. When questioned by journalists or politicians, they would dismiss the claims as science fiction, as paranoid fantasy, as the fever dreams of conspiracy theorists. But slowly, painstakingly, piece by piece, the evidence began to emerge from the shadows. Part 3. The Secret Unravels Whistleblowers and Inquiries. The first public cracks in the wall of secrecy surrounding ECHELON appeared in 1988. A brilliant and tenacious investigative journalist from Scotland named Duncan Campbell published a groundbreaking article in the New Statesman magazine titled, "Somebody's Listening." Campbell, who had been researching signals intelligence for years and had faced government prosecution for his work, laid out the first detailed public description of the ECHELON system. He described the role of the listening stations at Menwith Hill and elsewhere. He explained the concept of the keyword dictionaries, and he revealed the codename ECHELON to the world. The article caused a stir in intelligence circles and among civil liberties groups, but it was largely ignored by the mainstream media, who were still reluctant to challenge official government denials. The story gained more traction and credibility in the 1990s, especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War. With the Soviet Union gone, people in Europe and elsewhere began to ask a logical and pressing question. Why was this massive, expensive global surveillance network still operating at full capacity? And who exactly was it listening to now? A number of brave whistleblowers from within the intelligence community, no longer bound by the imperatives of the Cold War, began to come forward. One of the most important of these whistleblowers was a woman named Margaret Peggy Newsham. Newsham had worked as a computer systems manager for the defense contractor Lockheed, and she had been stationed at the massive Menwith Hill listening post in England. In 1997, she agreed to testify at great personal risk before a special committee of the European Parliament that had been set up to investigate the ECHELON allegations. She confirmed that the NSA was using the base to indiscriminately intercept civilian communications. Most explosively, she testified that she had personally seen and processed transcripts of the phone calls of a sitting U.S. Senator, Strom Thurmond. This was a bombshell. It suggested that the sacred promise of no spying on our own was being flagrantly violated. Another key whistleblower was a former analyst from Canada's Signals Intelligence Agency, the Communications Security Establishment, CSE, named Mike Frost. In his 1994 book Spy World, Frost described in detail how he and his colleagues had used the ECHELON network to spy on the wife of a British cabinet minister, and how Canada had spied on its own close ally, the United Kingdom, on behalf of British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who was suspicious of two of her own cabinet members. Frost's testimony revealed the deep, sometimes cynical, level of cooperation within the Five Eyes, and how the no spying on each other rule could be cleverly circumvented by having one member of the alliance spy on the citizens of another member, and then share the intelligence. The evidence continued to mount. In 1999, the Australian government accidentally released a secret report that explicitly confirmed its role in the Five Eyes alliance and its participation in a global signals intelligence network, lending official weight to the whistleblower's claims. But the most comprehensive and damning investigation came from the European Parliament. Spurred on by Duncan Campbell's research and the powerful whistleblower testimony, the Parliament launched a major year-long investigation into the ECHELON network in 2000. Their final report, a detailed 194-page document released in 2001, was a landmark in the history of surveillance oversight. After interviewing dozens of witnesses, including intelligence officials, journalists, and civil liberties experts, and after analyzing reams of technical evidence, the European Parliament concluded unequivocally that the ECHELON system was real. The report's central finding was blunt. The existence of a global system for intercepting private and commercial communications, operating by means of cooperation proportionate to their capabilities among the USA, the UK, Canada, Australia and New Zealand under the ECHELON agreement, is no longer in doubt. The report went on to detail how the system worked, confirming the use of listening stations like Menwith Hill and Pine Gap, and the use of keyword dictionaries to filter the vast amounts of intercepted data. But most shockingly, the report concluded that the system was being used for far more than just hunting terrorists and foreign spies. The committee found credible evidence that ECHELON was being routinely used for economic and industrial espionage, a form of high-tech spying aimed at stealing trade secrets and giving American and British companies an unfair advantage in the global marketplace. The specific allegations detailed in the report were stunning. In one famous case from 1994, the French aerospace company Thomson CSF was competing with the American company Raytheon for a massive, billion-dollar contract to supply a radar surveillance system to Brazil. Just before the contract was awarded, the French company's confidential bid information and negotiation strategies were allegedly intercepted by the ECHELON system and passed by the NSA to their American competitor. Raytheon then adjusted its own bid at the last minute and won the contract. In another case from 1995, the European aerospace giant Airbus was in the final stages of negotiating a $6 billion deal to sell its aircraft to Saudi Arabia. It was alleged that the NSA intercepted the faxes and phone calls between Airbus executives and the Saudi government, learning the exact details of the bribes Airbus was offering to Saudi officials. This information was then shared with the American rival companies, Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, who were able to counter with their own inducements and snatch the contract away from Airbus. These were explosive allegations. They suggested that the massive surveillance apparatus that was built to fight the Cold War was now being repurposed as a tool for corporate espionage. It meant that the citizens and companies of allied European nations like France and Germany were being systematically spied on by the Five Eyes alliance for commercial gain. The United States government, of course, vehemently denied these allegations, dismissing them as protectionist paranoia and sour grapes from European companies that had lost fair and square. But the damage was done. The ECHELON report confirmed the worst fears of many Europeans and forever tarnished the relationship of trust between the transatlantic allies. The secret was out. The ECHELON network, once a phantom of the conspiracy world, was now a confirmed, documented, and scandalous reality. Part 4. The Legacy of ECHELON and the Inevitable Road to Snowden. The public revelations about ECHELON in the late 1990s and early 2000s were a critical moment in the history of surveillance. For the first time, there was widespread mainstream public debate about the existence and the profound implications of a system of mass, global, indiscriminate electronic eavesdropping. It was the pre-Snowden era's great surveillance scandal. However, the world at that time was very different. The Internet was still in its relative infancy. Social media did not exist. Most people did not carry a powerful tracking device in their pocket. The primary forms of communication being intercepted by ECHELON were international phone calls, faxes, and telex messages. The public outcry, while significant especially in Europe, was somewhat abstract for many people. It did not lead to major, systemic changes in surveillance laws or practices. Then came the attacks of September 11, 2001. The 9/11 attacks changed everything. In the climate of intense fear, anger, and patriotism that followed, the public's appetite for security dramatically increased, and concerns about privacy were, for a time, pushed to the back burner. The war on terror provided the perfect justification for the intelligence agencies to dramatically expand their powers and to turn the powerful tools of surveillance that had been developed to spy on foreign adversaries inward, against their own populations. The laws governing surveillance in the United States and other Western countries were hastily rewritten. The USA Patriot Act, passed in the U.S. just weeks after September 11th, gave the government sweeping new powers to monitor communications. The capabilities of the ECHELON network and its successors were supercharged with massive new funding and a broad new mandate. The explosion of the Internet, the rise of social media, The ubiquity of smartphones, all of this created a tidal wave, a tsunami of new data for the intelligence agencies to collect and analyze. The principles of ECHELON mass interception and automated keyword searching were now applied to the entire digital world. The NSA and its Five Eyes partners began to secretly and illegally tap into the massive fiber optic cables that carry the world's internet traffic. They developed secret programs to compel or co-opt the world's largest tech companies, forcing them to provide direct access to the data stored on their servers. They collected location data from hundreds of millions of mobile phones. The collect-it-all philosophy, born in the secret world of Cold War satellite interception, had reached its logical and terrifying conclusion in the age of big data. This is the world that Edward Snowden revealed to us in 2013. The programs he exposed, programs with ominous code names like Prism, which collected data from tech companies, and Tempora, a British GCHQ program that tapped transatlantic fiber optic cables, were the direct technological and philosophical descendants of the ECHELON network. The NSA secrets that Snowden leaked were not a radical departure from the past. They were the culmination of a journey that had begun with the secret ACUSA agreement in 1946. Snowden simply held up a mirror and showed us how the system had evolved and adapted for the internet age, and how its all-seeing eyes had turned inward. The legacy of ECHELON is therefore a profound and complex one. It represents the moment when the paradigm of surveillance shifted forever. It shifted from the targeted interception of specific high-value targets, a Soviet general, a terrorist to the indiscriminate, automated collection of everything. It created the technological infrastructure, the legal precedents, and the institutional mindset for the world of mass surveillance that we live in today. It also demonstrated the immense, unaccountable power of the Five Eyes alliance, an intelligence pact so secret and so powerful that it operates almost as a supranational state, largely beyond the effective oversight of national parliaments, courts, or the public it is supposed to serve. And finally, it serves as a powerful and enduring cautionary tale. It shows how a system created for a specific justifiable purposito defend the West during the Cold War can, over time, expand its mission in secret, turning its powerful tools against allies in the service of economic interests, and eventually against ordinary citizens in the name of security. It is a story about the seductive and corrupting nature of secret power, and the slow, almost imperceptible erosion of privacy that can happen when the public is not watching, when we are told to simply trust that our protectors are acting in our best interests. The giant white radomes of men with Hill and Pine Gap still stand today, silent sentinels on the landscape, their dishes still pointed towards the sky. They are a physical reminder that long before we worried about our data on Facebook or the microphone on our smartphone, a powerful network was already listening. The ECHELON network was the ghost in the machine, the original sin of the digital age, and the secret history of how our world of global surveillance was born. And now I want to turn the question over to you. What is your reaction to the story of the ECHELON network? Does it change your perspective on the Edward Snowden revelations, seeing them not as a beginning, but as a continuation of a long and hidden history? How do you feel about the existence of the Five Eyes Alliance and the idea of a secret intelligence pact that transcends national borders and democratic oversight? And what do you make of the allegations of economic espionage, of using national security tools for corporate gain? Let us know your thoughts, your analysis, and your feelings in the comments below. This is a crucial part of our recent history that is too important to be forgotten or misunderstood. If you found this deep dive into the secret world of global surveillance to be important and compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. By hitting that notification bell, you'll join us for our next journey into the hidden histories and the declassified secrets that continue to shape our world. Thank you for listening.